Welcome. My name's Joanna Holmes. I will be your guide today as we go through the release notes for Power Platform. This is actually going to be a two-part series. Today, we're just going to cover what's in Power Platform, just what's in Power Platform. There's a lot in Power Platform, which is why next week we will be having another session going over the release wave notes for what's in our specific Dynamics 365 apps, sales, customer service, customer insights, journeys. We'll go through all of that next week. So today, going to be all about the Power Platform. Excited to go through this with all of you and lots to cover. So let's go ahead and get started. For our agenda today, we're going to start off with deprecations. What are the things we are losing or need to be aware of that are going away? We'll cover basically all of the pieces of the Power Platform. We'll start off with Power Apps. We'll go to Power Pages and Power Automate. We'll talk about Copilot Studio and look at Dataverse. So there's lots in these release notes. And as you all know, if you've been around the platform for a while, when we have a release wave, it's a long period of time while they're sort of like adding in all of these features that we see promised in the release notes. So my goal here is really to highlight the things that we already know about that are live and are available right now. We really want to focus on those. But then we'll also take a look at what are the things coming soon, things we're going to be seeing in December, January. What are the next upcoming exciting things? But there's even more in these release notes, things that are promised to be coming in March and April. So not really going to focus on those a ton. We want to look at, what's the closest. So I do recommend getting out there, diving into those release notes yourself, just to make sure you know everything that is coming. We're kind of prioritizing what's the stuff that's happening right now. Where at all possible, I do like to include links on my slides to get you to that documentation on Microsoft Learn. So if there is something that you are so excited about, you have the ability to dive in and start learning more about that new exciting functionality that's coming. One other thing I like to talk about, and you may know about this, we've had this for a while. It is something called the experience for release notes. I think this is a little more friendly way to work with the release notes if you haven't worked with it before. Basically, it's kind of a website that helps me prioritize, again, what's important to me at my organization. What are the things I care about? I can add those new features and things that are coming. I can add them to basically my own list so I can keep an eye on these things as they slowly release over this period of time that we have here. So if you have not, I highly recommend putting this one in your bookmarks, experience.dynamics.com release plans. I just find it's really easy to navigate, a little bit more friendly than just the straight release notes. Of course, you are more than welcome to read that too. But what I like about it are some of the filtering options. So I can see what are the planned features, what's coming soon, and what are the things that are available right now that I can dive in and start using right now. You'll also see when you click through like Power Pages and take a look, again, you have this ability to see when it's available for public preview, when it's generally available. There'll also be some links there to documentation as well. Couple other websites I think are important because these release waves do happen over a long period of time. There's a site for change history. Sometimes Microsoft says we're going to get something in January and then, oops, nope, it's going later. Or nope, actually it's starting sooner. Or we add things or things get removed. So change history is helpful for kind of some of those announcements. Again, if it was something I was waiting for and excited for, I'll be able to see all of those changes if I'm like, I want to prove I'm not going crazy. They promised that in January. Change history is also one of my favorite sites to bookmark and go back to frequently. Another one I like to point out, early access features. This is the stuff that is available now. These are the things confirmed in this release wave that have little green checks. I can start working with this functionality. So I like to check in on this website frequently too. All right, that's our housekeeping out of the way. Let's dive into it. Let's talk deprecations. Rest in peace, friends. What are the things we are saying goodbye to this release wave? Organization insights dashboards. They were something that weren't really adopted. You maybe never even heard of them. They came out a couple years ago, but basically those are being deprecated. And honestly, all of that functionality, the good news when Microsoft deprecates things, usually have a replacement for us. So the insights that we had on those organization dashboards, really you have those in your Dataverse analytics. So if you go in the Power Platform Admin Center, that's where we go to kind of see how am I doing as an organization? You know, who's using my database? How are we using our database? All of that I will see underneath these Dataverse analytics. So again, those organization insights dashboards gone away, but we have our replacement here for Dataverse analytics. Couple other things. There is another deprecation here for multi-tenant apps that have a service principal in the Microsoft Entra ID tenant. So those are going to need to be updated. Multi-tenant app means it's an app that I can use in different tenants. When it comes to developing those apps, as a developer, as a maker, I'm basically configuring that app at the time to either be a single tenant or a multi-tenant app during that registration, during that building of that app. So single tenant apps are only available in the tenant they were registered in. They're also known as their home tenant then, and multi-tenant apps are available for users in both their home tenant and other tenants. But again, I just need to make sure that I'm saying that when I'm creating that new app. So again, this is some things for you to know about that. Have the link to that documentation on how you would provision a multi-tenant app. Now, again, for most of you on the call, I think you probably just have the one tenant at your organization. Don't really need to worry about that. But if you are a larger organization or somebody who is, you know, has multiple tenants for different lines of business, again, this is an option again for us to be able to have those apps used across different tenants. We just have to set them up that way when we create them. Again, that link is on the slide at the bottom if you want to learn more about that functionality. I'm going to miss this, homie. It's been around for a while. The ability to see a hierarchical control. So if at your organization you have, we see this out of the box on accounts. I have a parent account, Acme Corporation, and then I have these other sub accounts underneath them. And we had this thing called the hierarchy control where we could see, you know, how they were related to each other. That's going away. It is being deprecated. It's still in the application. It will work until 2025. The reason Microsoft is getting rid of it, they're saying it's low usage, not a ton of people use it. There's issues with it not being accessible or readable for folks, and then incompatibility with kind of the new modern look that we have too. Now, if you are super bummed about this, you're like, I love this. We used this all the time. There is the ability for you to build your own version of this, and that is with something called PCF controls. So we can make a PCF control in order to handle that hierarchy view. If you want to learn about how to create a PCF control, because you just can't live without this, again, have the link on the slide here that'll walk you through kind of how you would set up creating a custom control, a PCF control there. So no replacement there, but we can build our own if we need it. All right, so saying goodbye to some things. Now let's talk about what's new and exciting. Let's start off with Power Apps. On each of my intro slides for each section that we're going, again, that is going to take you to that Learn documentation specifically about this particular piece of the Power Platform. So again, you can dive in and look at the full list as opposed to just the green checks and the coming soons and things that are in public preview right now that I'll be going over in this presentation. So one of the core pieces here in this release wave is around with Power Apps being able to build modern apps. So we have a ton of updates here. As you can see, when we look at our release wave here, I've got some green checks in public preview, some things that are available, a lot of things in early access, and then quite a few things that are promised to be generally available October, November. Now, I was putting these slides together last week. You can see we still are missing some green checks in October. So might want to check out that change history. But again, we are going to take a look at what we can expect on some of these. So let's take a look. One thing I want to show you, and you may have already experienced this. I've experienced this in some of the environments I work in. Our old friend, if you've been around a long time, the crusty dusty business management settings that do not look modern. If you came along more recently, you'd be like, wow, this looks wildly different than everything else. Yeah, because this is the old school, what it used to look like. It is now being modernized. So when you click on those advanced settings up in your navigation bar, that little gear icon, you clicked on advanced settings, it would take you to this old screen that is wildly different from everything else in our apps. Now, if this freaks you out, you're an old timer like me, there is a switch you can turn it off and say, I'm not ready to give up yet. There is a switch in the Power Platform Admin Center, Environment Settings Behavior. I'm not ready for change. But if you are ready for change, if you've already experienced the change, because this has already been updated for you, this is what it looks like now. It kind of matches the rest of our app. And truly, it is the same, interface that we had before. It's just in a new layout here. So again, this public preview is available now. Now, sometimes people had customized that advanced settings and had links to plugins, things like that. Those will be respected. You'll still see them over here. So no worries there, but time to get modern for us as administrators too. So we have kind of a new menu experience here. That also means we're saying goodbye to another friend here, which is this Dynamics 365-custom app. You may have seen this if you are a system administrator and been like, what the heck is this? This is something that's been around since 2016. So in 2016, we had kind of a big UI refresh in 2016. And this was an older app that we used as administrators, kind of see the whole sitemap basically for all of my different Dynamics apps. Honestly, not a ton of people use it. Definitely, it's been hidden from users for a while now. And now we have the ability to hide it from ourselves as administrators to say, yeah, I don't use that. And honestly, you're probably not using that. So if you want to hide this app even from admins, you have the ability to do that. So we can go in to the settings, we can go to the behavior, and then we have an option set for whether we want to show this app or not. Doesn't hurt anything to leave it out there, but just know it is also eventually going away soon too. Talking about that modern refreshed look, for a while we've had like this little flip switch where you could say, I want to try the new modern experience. The flip switch is going away, and now we are just in this modern experience. So you don't have that flip switch anymore. So you probably are already experiencing the new look and feel, this refresh to model-driven apps. What's so wildly different about it? There's drop shadows, and there's brighter background colors. It was a pretty minor refresh in my opinion. Like, I don't think it's like glaringly wildly different from what we had before. Just some enhancements here, refreshed headers and tabs and sections, business process flows a little bit cleaner now. Again, if you're curious more about what exactly changed in that modern refresh, again, we have that link at the bottom of the slide here. One thing I'm excited about, because I find this to be helpful, we now have the ability to resize the side panes that we have for like Copilot and Teams. So you'll notice there's a little bar. If you've launched Copilot while you're working in a Dynamics 365 app, it pops it open. Now I have a little bar. I can expand this or shrink it a little bit. So it gives me a little bit more real estate here. So again, allows me to have more control over the screen size that I'm working with here in one of my apps. One other thing to know, we have always had the ability to see recent records and pinned records, but that wasn't true for people who used multi-session sitemap apps, I should say. So if you're like, what the heck is a multi-session sitemap app? Customer Service Workspace is an example of an app like that. And so previously in that application, you couldn't really see your recent records, pinned records. Those are now available in these multi-session sitemap apps like Workspace. So again, kind of bringing up to parity these types of apps with the other model-driven apps that we have. It's a nice enhancement there. Now, release waves. we just talked about how they kind of go for a long period of time. We could change that. You can choose how frequently your updates are happening. So by default, we are semi-annual channel. But now you could switch to a monthly channel. This will allow you access to the updates and features more quickly, everything that's updated every month. So monthly channel releases, again, allow me and my users to get the latest and greatest functionality as quickly as possible. So again, as a system administrator, I can decide for my app how frequently I want those updates to be. I might choose the semi-annual channel. I would prefer kind of a slower release cadence. I want to vet these things before they come into the application. So again, you have a choice that you can make now on whether you want your apps to be updated monthly or on kind of that release wave cadence that we have now. If you want to learn more about that, again, link at the bottom of the slide to Microsoft's documentation. I will tell you, this one surprised me the first time it happened to me. This one of when you're using a lookup control in a model-driven app, in any app really, and I'm using that lookup control. If I hit the enter button, whatever's the first thing on the list is what's going to populate in that lookup field. And that was a big surprise to me the first time it happened. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't select that. I don't have to. So it's going to select the top one on your list. So be careful with that enter button if you didn't mean to select the one at the top of your list. It was surprising to me the first time it happened. But again, just a little user interface trick that we have now available to us when we're working with lookups on a record. All right, Power Apps, let's take a look at what's coming in terms of Copilot functionality when we're working with our Power Apps. Again, not a ton of green checks here. We do have quite a few things that are in public preview starting in November. So let's take a look at some of the things that we have here with Copilot and Power Apps. This is the stuff that gets me very excited because these are things like these can help me as I'm trying to build new apps for my organization. Copilot can help me draft some of those things. So Copilot can help us build and edit apps when we're working in the Power App Studio. Now you might be like, what the heck is the Power App Studio again? That's when you go in and you go make.powerapps.com. So I go to the Power App Studio when I want to add a new table, when I want to maybe modify the relationships between tables. I want to change my form layout, add some new columns into a table. All of that I'm going to do in the Power App Studio. So what I have now is, as a maker, I can initiate some prompts to help me. So when I'm working in a Canvas app, I can say, please add a button to my header, or change the container to align center, change all of my labels to have font size 18. I'm most excited for that one, so I don't have to go into each of those things and change that font size. So again, I'm excited to have Copilot as a helper here as I'm sort of designing my Canvas apps. And so again, if you want to learn more about that, have a link down to the bottom. But I think, again, this is just all about being able to design a Canvas app much more quickly with Copilot as my helper. There are also column suggestions that Copilot can make for us. So Copilot can proactively suggest relevant columns for the data that we're collecting.
Hey, Joanna.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. We just happen to have a couple questions on that
Oh,
last one.
yeah.
I'm wondering if you can answer that. They're curious. Do you know if we can change the color of a label?
That is a good question. It says I can make this label bold. Let me double check on that and then maybe follow up. Kaisa,
Sure.
I know you. I can follow up with you. Changing the color of a label. Yeah, I'll look into that.
And then also, this is in Canvas apps, but is the coloring the same on model-driven apps?
So model-driven apps are going to be different. We have fewer color options within a model-driven app. Yeah, we kind of just have
Okay.
to use what we've got there. This is mostly for Canvas apps where we get to do this fun stuff. Great questions. But I will find out if we can change the label color with Copilot. I'm guessing we can, but we'll find out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Best moderator in the business. Awesome. So one other thing that we can do, as we were talking, Copilot can suggest columns for my data based on the table that I am creating in a model-driven app, based on the other data points and tables that I have in my app. When I'm building a new form or a new model-driven app and I go to make a new table, Copilot is going to make some suggestions for me. Again, it's going to look at our table schema as well as the name. And if I put in a description for this particular table, it can make some suggestions again for data columns that might be helpful. So I don't have to think of my data structure all on my own. Again, Copilot is going to make some suggestions for me. Awesome. Let's talk about Power Pages. If you're not familiar, Power Pages are a way for us to create websites. And so we have some new functionality here in Power Pages. So coming in January, what will be generally available is some enhanced file upload for Power Pages sites. Those enhancements are going to be, we can have larger file size. And so again, we can have a larger file size for our SharePoint storage too. We will have the ability to drag and drop files onto our Power Pages sites. We can scan these files that we're uploading for malware. And again, we can configure file upload for SharePoint storage, again, with kind of a streamlined experience in the Design Studio. Some of this was stuff I could do as a developer, but now as sort of, kind of that promise of no code and low code as much as possible. This is again going to be sort of native enhancements in here for, again, kind of a streamlined experience when we're working in the Power Pages Design Studio. So we can also, in our Power Pages Design Studio, get some help with security. I might be good at designing a web page, but man, I maybe struggle with staying on top of security, which is so critical for our website development. So we can get some help here. I can schedule a security scan to check my website, make sure it's secure from threats. So again, I can run a scan to evaluate the security level of the site. It'll also give me a report with the results of the security scan that it did and give me some suggestions on some things I should think about as sort of the website administrator, things that might help me with my security. Again, this is something that's in public preview right now. So we actually had this as a preview in May, so you can start working with it now. And again, this will just be generally available and just the way things work starting in January. So not too far away. We are coming up on 2025. Again, if you want to learn a little bit more about what that security scan process looks like, how you could do it today, have that link to the documentation on the slide here. In the Design Studio for Power Pages, we got our friend Copilot again, and we can use Copilot again to help us add a web page or a section to one of our Power Pages sites. Again, this is something we will see in public preview starting in January, so something coming soon. So again, I'm just going to use Copilot and conversational dialogue to help me describe a page or a section. And then Copilot is going to give me kind of that first draft based on what I've described. Once I see what Copilot has generated, I can decide if I want to keep that or discard it before I add it to my site. Meanwhile, I might say, I like this, but I'm going to want to tweak this. You can still add it to your site and continue editing using the same canvas controls that you used in the Design Studio for Power Pages. Again, it's nice to have Copilot there as kind of my first draft, my rough draft. It can get me designing and iterating faster. So exciting stuff here that we should see in January. Power Pages and Copilot. Also, we have the ability to help us if you have a community template. So when you have Power Pages, sometimes you can apply a template to them for, this is going to be a Power Page that's going to be about helping with case management. There's also a template out there for a community template. So think about a template around I want my community to come together and they have like a message board that they use. Maybe that's a Power Page site that we have. So within that community template, we now have some AI search capabilities that will be applied to that template. So I can use this search functionality to give my users comprehensive summaries of search results. So they can use Copilot again to sort of search our community website. It's also going to give the administrators of those community sites the ability to configure AI search settings. So again, it's going to give users summaries on relevant search results. It'll bring them links to content within the community that will answer those questions. So again, as administrators, we can configure some of these search areas, ensuring that the people accessing and using that community site will have the most accurate search results. And this feature is also using AI to, again, sort of streamline that end user experience of searching the community for specific information, so they can get those result summaries faster. They don't have to sift through multiple discussion threads or wait from responses from an administrator. So again, just enhancing kind of that community page experience and infusing Copilot with that. All right, let's switch gears yet again and talk about Power Automate. Remembering Power Automate, this is our workhorse tool for having automations across different systems or having automations within Dataverse. So this is kind of our workflow automation tool here, tool set here is in Power Automate. So we have something cool here. We have a new automation center that we can access. Again, this is something that's been in public preview since June, but will be the norm here in November. So we are in November, no green check yet, but coming very soon, we have this admin center here for our automation. So it's a way for me to sort of check in and see everything that's going on with my Power Automate cloud flows and desktop flows in this automation center. So it's going to provide me a single consolidated view of the cloud and desktop flows together. What it's going to show me are things like top trends across automation assets, whether there were successes and failures in certain time periods for my flows. I could also see what some of my top errors and trends are, what are the top flows and maybe specific errors that we have. And again, it's this ability to switch between cloud and desktop flows quickly and easily, and having it all consolidated in one place is nice. Again, if you are not familiar with it, have not played with it yet, there is the link on the slide here to learn more about what you'll find in that Power Automate Automation Center kind of dashboard that we have now. We also have the ability, this one blows my mind, to create Power Automate flows in Excel. Yeah, it's wild times now, everyone. We have general availability for this will be coming in December. So what we can expect is when you are in Excel, you will now see a new tab that is called Automate. And when I open that up, I will find ready-made templates in the ribbon that will let me as a user make a workflow easily and quickly by filling out that template. So I'll enter that information into my template for parameters. And now as a maker, I can also view and manage my flows from Excel, which is kind of crazy, but kind of cool. Again, I think this is Microsoft making efforts to anyone could make an automate, provided you give them a tool set that they're comfortable with. So that's what I feel like. Excel nerds rejoice. We can use Excel to help us build Power Automate. You can use Excel to do anything. You can tell I'm an Excel nerd. So anyways, this is exciting stuff that we're looking forward to seeing in December. You can also start using workflows on calendar events in Teams and Outlook. So again, this is something we're expecting to see in December. So what I can do is I can use some calendar related templates to, again, create automations. So automations based around things that are happening in Teams and Outlook. So for example, maybe I have a flow that needs to kick off maybe at the start or the end of a meeting to do some sort of automation task. That is something that we will be able to start doing come December in Power Automate, which is kind of exciting stuff too. I'm a big fan of making oopses. No, I'm a big fan of being able to fix my oopses. That's what I'm a fan of. So we now have some undo and redo while you are building cloud flows in the designer. So again, this is a place where we can build in Copilot. And as I'm building and sort of iterating with Copilot, I can undo any of those actions manually with an undo button. Or I can also ask Copilot to undo or redo some of those things that I changed. So again, more options for fixing oopses while we work with our Cloudflow designer. Here we go, Copilot, it's everywhere. Here's how Copilot is being infused into Power Automate. This is also one that gets me very excited. It takes away some of that learning curve for picking up Power Automate. And so I think this is really exciting. So what you have the ability to do is use Copilot to help me work with some of my automation. We can use some use cases here using Copilot to also sort of inform me, how are my flows doing? Am I getting errors on things? So using Copilot to analyze some of this data that we're seeing in that admin center that I mentioned earlier, that's also something that we can use here too. So Copilot is going to be able to analyze our desktop flow activities, and Microsoft is kind of taking this first step in a new direction, allowing us again to get insights by asking Copilot desktop flow activity specific questions. Again, just having a conversation basically with Power Automate on how things are going. So with this Copilot experience, it's going to be powered by Azure OpenAI. It's basically capable of translating my natural language user prompt into a Dataverse fetch XML query. So again, these queries are going to be focused on how to optimize a desktop flow, such as asking questions about runs and flows and errors and machines for my desktop flows. So at a high level, how it's going to work, I will put in a prompt. Copilot is going to change my prompt into a fetch XML query based on that input. If it's able to generate that fetch XML and it is valid, it's then going to bring back those results for me as well. And then Copilot is going to determine the most suitable output visualization for that. So it might give me my answer in a table. It might give me the response to my question in a pie chart or bar chart or line chart. So again, it's going to give me a way to, it's going to present the data to me in a way with a visualization. So what are fetch XML queries? You might be like, I'm still not following on that. So Dataverse has fetch XML, and it's basically just a language that we use for developers and able to retrieve data from the Dataverse database. So it's designed to be easy, and again, easy to translate from our natural language into getting those results back. So if you haven't used Copilot a ton, just some best practices in general using Copilot, being specific about what it is you are trying to find the answer to. And again, sometimes I might need to reword it a little bit differently. And this is a conversation, so I can make adjustments to something I asked previously. So again, I can experiment with prompts by providing more context. And again, there's always a spot when you're using Copilot to be like, did it give you a good answer or not so much? So providing that feedback also helps the AI models learn how best to translate our queries into these fetch XML queries. Again, link on the slide at the bottom here, but I want to talk about this a little bit more because again, I'm using Copilot here to tell me how my Power Automate flows are performing. So I have some example prompts on the slide, but think about scenarios where I want to know how my flows are running. So I could ask questions like, which flows ran the most last week? What were yesterday's top 5 flows by number of completed runs? What was the average run duration for flow X? During the last quarter. Can also ask a bunch of questions about any errors that I'm getting from my flows. So show me the most frequent run errors during the last month. Show me a distribution of successful versus failed flows during the last quarter. What were the number of failed runs during the week? You can ask questions about the machines. Which bots have the most run failures? Which machines are in maintenance mode? And as a maker, I might also ask questions like, show me the top flows by number of runs with their owner info. Who are the top 10 users running flows during the last month? When and by whom were desktop flows modified in the last week? So again, it's just a way for me to get information about my flows, asking conversational questions of Copilot. So exciting stuff here, new stuff here. Again, this is where we're seeing Copilot also being infused here with Power Automate. Remember I said it can help us with scripting and doing developer things? Yeah, so starting in public preview, it's available as of last November, but this is going to be generally available in December. We'll finally have this as a full feature, is going to be using natural language to help me code. So I have the ability to use Copilot to help me generate a script. So I can use this to run a script for PowerShell, a VB script, DOS command, Python, JavaScript, all of that. It can help me if I can describe what I need my script to do. Copilot can help me try and write that out. So this is really exciting stuff that makes me as an administrator excited to be able to do more without maybe having that coding background. So exciting help here from Copilot. So here you can see we have put in a question here, create a script that will perform a post call to www.contoso.com and pass the error details variable. So that's what I need it to do. And then it gives me that suggested script. And so again, I can use that script moving forward. Exciting stuff. We can also use Copilot to ask questions about Power Automate. This makes me very excited too. Sometimes I have to go to learn documentation from Microsoft, and that's a hassle to go find what I need, and maybe it's not exactly the answer I was looking for. So again, we can ask Copilot, hey, how does Power Automate work? What can I do with this? Asking those product related questions, again, saving the need for me to have to go do a web search, or waiting for Microsoft support to come back to me on something. Again, we can sort of manage and learn things about Power Automate from Copilot. So pretty cool stuff. Again, we can create and manage our flows using natural language in Copilot. And if you fall down on documentation, not that any of us do that ever. Me, I fall down on documentation. We can even allow Copilot to make descriptions of our flow. So saving me time. I don't have to write out the description. It'll look at the flow and write the description for me. So that's kind of exciting stuff. We also have the ability to try different variations, right? If you've done any Power Automates yourself, you and a coworker might come at the situation with a very different approach. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to bounce those ideas off of others. And so now we can bounce some of those ideas off of Copilot. In fact, we can make Copilot, hey, Copilot, this is one way we could do this flow. Do it again, regenerate it. Now, if it's because I don't really like the version of what the flow is doing, I can ask Copilot to regenerate with a different variation based on things. But sometimes I might just say, try it again. Give me a different answer to this solution. Give me a different solution to this problem that we have. So again, we can reutilize this regenerate button. I don't even have to ask it again in slightly different words. I just want it to give me another version of this so I can sort of compare and contrast as to which Power Automate is maybe more efficient or going to do what I want more cleanly. So again, it's just a way. I see Copilot as a great way to get first drafts of things. And so again, this is just another way to iterate more quickly, using more brain power than just mine. So using Copilot again to help with some of that is exciting stuff. For desktop flows, so Power Automate desktop flows are getting a whole bunch of cloud connectors now. So this is kind of exciting too, kind of marrying these pieces together. So we've had a lot of these in public preview, but this month, these all should become generally available in the assets library for desktop flows. So I won't sit here and make you read through all of these. A lot of really cool cloud connectors available in desktop flows now. Desktop flows also have the ability to integrate with PowerFX. So PowerFX is a low-code language expressing logic that we use across kind of the Power Platform. So it's a general purpose declarative programming language. And, it's usually expressed in human-friendly text. And so it's easy to work with. And again, kind of a quicker learning skill and upskill is easier with Power FX. If you're comfortable and familiar with Excel formulas, you can pick up Power FX. But now we also can use that with our Power Automate for desktop too. So again, we can create automation flows using the Power FX language. And again, if you want to learn more about that, have the link at the bottom of the slide here. Let's talk about Copilot Studio. Now, you might be new to the term Copilot Studio. It's been around for a while. It used to be called Virtual Agents. So now we have Microsoft Copilot Studio. And so virtual agents were like chatbots, right? Well, Copilot is like really souped up chatbots. And so we have our Copilot Studio. So wanted to kind of lay the groundwork here. Copilot Studio is a graphical low code tool, again, for creating custom copilots or chatbots, if you want to think of Copilot that way, if that helps you come up to speed on what Copilot is. Again, including building automation with Power Automate and extending Copilot in other Microsoft applications with our own enterprise data and scenarios. So not only will these be Copilots we can leverage, we can sort of infuse our own look and feel and the data that's available to them to give back that information. So I've heard of Copilot, but I'm still not totally sure what they are. So like I said, they're kind of like a chatbot, but a really souped up chatbot. They're based on large language models. So to have this conversational interface with sources of knowledge. So now we can sort of enhance those sources of knowledge with our copilots in Copilot Studio. So I like to think of them, like I said, a companion that can handle all sorts of requests, simple responses, as we've seen, issues that I'm having in Power Automate. So again, it's just a way to engage with our data in a conversational way. So some of the ways we might use copilots would be for sales help or support issues, or having a copilot on our website, on our Power page, that explains the opening hours and store information for people interacting with our website. Maybe we have a copilot that explains our employee health and vacation benefits. We will see that we can deploy that on Teams and have employee-friendly copilots available for us. So again, that's what copilots are. Copilot Studio has been around for a while now, but our release wave 2 coming attractions that we can see here are native capabilities for extending Microsoft Copilot in Copilot Studio, right? There are ways as a developer that you could extend a Copilot, but again, we're trying to make this more friendly for administrative users. We're also going to see the ability for interactive voice response, or IVR support. So that's usually in customer service scenarios, so we can have automated voices read our Copilot responses. We can do software lifecycle management capabilities like topic level import and export around role-based access controls, or RBACs. So we can create copilots using solutions. We can deploy copilots components using pipelines. We can share copilot components with users or teams. Again, looking at improvements for governance. So I don't have to recreate the wheel. If I have a copilot in one environment, being able to use those in other environments is going to be helpful as well. One thing in Copilot Studio that is available now as of October 10th, something I mentioned a little bit earlier, the ability to use Copilot Studio for business chat and Teams. So again, think of having that Copilot that would be deployed in Teams. And again, maybe I want to tailor that Copilot to provide information to my employees. So I can ask, what are my company's holiday days? And Copilot could give me that answer. Again, it's a way to create, share, and customize a Copilot agent to connect to other knowledge sources to, again, pinpoint the information that Copilot should be relaying back to the people using it. We can import and export topics across copilots and environments. Again, this is something that is in public preview right now. This again allows for more reusability with these copilot projects that we have, that maybe I try it in one environment and now I need it in another. Again, we have easy capabilities to import and export those topics. When you build a copilot, you give them topics for things that they could respond to. So again, the ability to reuse some of those will be helpful. All right, our final section together is going to be around Dataverse. So that is the underlying structure of Dataverse. The underlying structure of our Power Platform is Dataverse, I should say. The public preview for this came in August, and it is now generally available. What we see here in Dataverse is the ability to create relationships between a virtual table and a native table. So again, we've had virtual tables since 2016, so they've been around for a while. But mostly what we used virtual tables for was a way to say, I have all of this ERP data that lives in a different system, but I would like to be able to display a SKU number. I could do that with a virtual table. I didn't have to upload all of the data into Dataverse. There was just a connection to that other database, so I could see that information. So that was good for read operations, but that's as far as it's really gone. But now we have the ability to create relationships between the tables that actually live in Dataverse and any tables that are virtual that the data might be living in a completely different database. So what we are getting here that we have now as of October, I have the ability to do some create, read, update, delete operations. We can do filters. We can do some expansions with the types of joins that we can do, inner and left outer. So again, these are exciting things to make virtual tables even more helpful and useful in some of our scenarios. Again, if you want to learn more about virtual tables and how you can create these new relationships, this is something you can start doing today. You have that link at the bottom of the slide here. We also have the ability to enhance those copilots like we were talking about. So again, makers can create plugins that can be published to various copilots. Copilot Studio is going to give admins controls to enrich the Copilot for Sales. Their Copilot for Sales is there, but now I can enhance it maybe with data from our own organization or with using a specific plugin. There are some out-of-the-box plugins as well as the ability for developers to make their own plugins as well. So we've got that link at the bottom of the slide if you want to learn more about that. I'm excited about this one. We've had this one in preview since June. It will become generally available in December. It's currently in preview, but it's a way to have a recycle bin. For years, I would teach administrators, I'm sorry, there is no recycle bin. I can't say that anymore. There is now. So it's a way to recover table data from any delete scenario. So somebody accidentally deleted a record, or I accidentally created a workflow that deleted a whole bunch of things, or I selected a whole bunch of records, or I did a bulk delete and oops, I picked the wrong set of records to bulk delete. If you go into the Power Platform Admin Center, you can go in there and access your recycle bin. Basically, it's a way for you to say, for this date range, I need to restore this data. So you can do that in the Power Platform app admin center. You can also do this if you're a developer through APIs and the SDK, software development kit. So during the preview, any table, so we're still technically in preview mode, and this is an important thing to know that I know I have come across already. Any table that has more than 400 columns isn't currently supported, but that's only during this preview period. So starting in December, we'll be able to use this functionality. So just something to be aware of if you're really amped about it and something catastrophic happens tomorrow and you're like, I know I can restore this. Be careful which table it is. If it's like an account table, you might be close to that 400 limit. Kind of depends on how much you've customized your table. So one little gotcha to be aware of, but again, that's just during that preview feature. If you're excited about this, I'm excited about this. Again, link on the slide on where you go to access that information, how you would restore data. All right, using the modern UI when accessing Access Team templates. First of all, we should maybe talk about what Access Team templates are. If you've been around for a while, it's just a way for us to control access to a record. That sometimes somebody owns a record, but other people need access to it. And you don't get read privileges to this record generally unless you own it. So we have our security role set up that way specifically, but there's maybe some exceptions. That's where Access Team templates can be nice to say, there are a couple people who, even though they don't own the record, they need access to this record. So that's something and functionality we've had for a while. This is sort of like our advanced settings. It's just getting a modern update and refresh to the UI. So again, this will be a new experience come December for what Access Team template setup. It's still going to function the same. We're just getting a modern UI. We did it, friends. We have talked about all of the things that are either available now or in preview now or are coming in November, December, January. Exciting stuff to talk about. I didn't talk about everything though. There are still sections on AI Builder, governance and administration I would highly recommend. So checking out that experience page that I mentioned at the top of the hour, getting those things, pinning some of your favorites so you can come back to them and keep an eye on them. That's what I would recommend doing. And then next week, if you've got the time, you want to learn more about sales, customer service, customer insights, we're going to talk about that same time next week on 11:20, and I hope to see you all there. Thanks everyone for joining.